So, without any more ado, I'll introduce you to Rob Groves from Argent on Paradise Circus.
Thank you. Well, thanks very much for inviting me here today. I'm sure some of you may be familiar with some of these slides, but there are some new images here which will bring you up to speed where we are. Paradise, right in the heart of the city. And what I am pleased to say is, as of December last year, all blame for traffic disruption can be passed on to Paula at the end of the line, because we've finished our work. So don't blame us for what's happened going forward. It is a big mixed-use scheme. It is office-led, but it's typical of the type of projects that Argent deal with. People that be familiar with Argent will know that we developed Brindley Place. If you're down in the southeast, it's all about King's Cross and Brent Cross. But it is, we believe, one of the biggest city centre mixed-use schemes outside of central London. Just a few reminders of images, what it used to be. I'm sure there may be some people in the audience that actually used to like the old library, but through the extensive consultation process we undertook, probably the majority of the public that live and work around the city certainly didn't. And I think it was mostly to do with the restriction it placed across the site. That is what we will be delivering. That is the image of the end of 2019. We committed to 350,000 square foot of spec offices back in 2015. And we're happy, to be fair to say, the way the lettings are going, and confident that we'll hopefully get it close to full, if not full, by the time it's complete at the end of 19. I'm going to move very quickly because I'm conscious of time. Some before and afters. Just give you some sort of scale, 10 office buildings. It is more than 700 million. If anyone wants to ask me about the 100 million in the press, please do so later, because it's full of something. But it is a big 550 car parking spaces and obviously a lot of offices. The two red buildings on there, what are we committed to deliver? We are now looking at phase 2, the area in blue. We hope to commit to that by the end of this year, which is actually a bigger phase than phase 1 in terms of space, and then phase 3 in the early 2020s. So again, before and after images, what we used to see, I mean, a very disjointed part of the city that was ripped apart by highway engineers back in the 60s. And then obviously what you see now, quite a transformation. It is a big, complex project, and what that doesn't show is the fact that we have a dual carriageway with 250,000 vehicles running underneath, in some places only about a metre below the surface where we were demolishing the central library. So again, back in November 15 and in August 16, quite a transformation, and understandably why we're so disruptive in terms of pedestrians and traffic to enable us to get to that position. And then we took it on a grey day. And then we took it on a bit of a bluer day. So you can start to see those links. This was picking up on what Wahid said about the big city plan earlier today. This is all about connections. This isn't just about office building. This is about opening up the city to the west and to the north and to the south. So you're seeing those connections through now, and hopefully most of you are experiencing that route through compared to the route through between Greggs and McDonald's, which hopefully is already substantially different to what it used to be. And again, the view from the ICC and what you see today. And of course, you can start to see how that pedestrian route will change and transform how people view that link from the council and the civic heart of the city through to the ICC and, of course, Brindley Place. These are the killer shots, as I refer to. This really reckons how lucky we are to be in this location. I don't think anyone really appreciates how beautiful that council house and the museum and the town hall are. And it's probably fair to say it's probably down to the quality of the public realm, and we would argue the quality of the buildings around it. But when you start to look at that transformation of that space, I think it's going to be a truly fantastic place. And I put the challenge to my colleagues down in London, it will be Argent's best public square. And I think that's really driven around the quality of the historic buildings that sit there at the moment. And then obviously you see another one of those killer shots. Now I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to quickly move on through the rest of the slides. Big focus on ground floor. We're very pleased with the way the F&B is going, and obviously about the old interaction with the public realm. Very much driven around what we learned at Brindley, what we're learning down at King's Cross, and then moving into the video. Oh, gone too fast, sorry. And hopefully this will kick off automatically. If not, I'm going to do a bit of a jig. Is it moving? Someone press the... it's just starting. This is the bit where hopefully the music will come up as well. If not, you're going to have to listen to me. Sounds like you're going to have to listen to me. But what this does, I think when we first started to produce these, and it's amazing, this is actually our contractor that's produced this video, BAM. And obviously based from the 3D models produced by the architects. But what this helps to do is start to show how those spaces are going to visually look. You can now start to see these today with that route that's opened up between the buildings. I mean, our focus on this development was originally all about the big city planning, opening up those connections. Our next stage was then about making this a truly public space and something which is an inviting space. So, you know, most people perceive great places by how the ground floor interacts with the public realm and what are the uses you have on those ground floors. As I said, we'll be making some announcements fairly shortly about some great occupiers we've got coming in on the ground floor. Some of those occupiers are their first actual spaces they've taken outside of central London. So we're bringing those type of things to the development, but also making it something that's very inclusive, something like Brindley Place. Anyone who goes to Brindley Place, when the sun's out, you get the public come there. It's a destination in its own right. So this is what we're trying to drive forward and hopefully we'll succeed on at Paradise. Something that's inclusive, not exclusive, not just for people that are booted and suited. And then, of course, the metro route coming through as well. And then what you're seeing here, you may have seen this in the press earlier this year. We got planning permission for the next phase, 1 Centenary Way. Anyone into architecture, an exoskeleton building, and rather than hide the frame of the building, we've actually exposed it. So something very different. What we learned at Brindley was that actually city centres are not about grey, monolithic sort of buildings that all look the same. It's about different styles of architecture. That's what makes character and place. So as you'll see with the different buildings that we're delivering here, we do make them work together, but they're very different styles of architecture. And again, focusing on now how they interact when they hit the ground, and not just thinking about, if you like, as an afterthought, how the ground works. We've got, it's literally coming to its end, and I've probably gone over my time slot. If I could speed the video up, Colin, I would. This is the replacement Copthorne Hotel on the right. They're making quite a significant investment and looking at something which is akin to a 5-star hotel. And they see that there's actually a marketplace in Birmingham, particularly with the drive and success of leisure for a much higher quality hotel. So I finished. My apologies, I might have gone slightly over time. Now I'm going to introduce Phil Ferrell from Urban Growth Company.
Thanks very much, Rob. Thanks for making all our images look really cheap and nasty after that one. Right, what are we up to? So we were asked to do a picture cutcher, I think it's 20 slides, 20 seconds each, and we refused to do that. We refused to do that on 2 bases. One is because the whole point of the Urban Growth Company is we've been set up to deliver things in an innovative, different, challenging way. The main reason is we simply couldn't get ourselves organised and my head of comm didn't trust me to do it properly. But we thought it's a good way of actually pointing out the point of the Urban Growth Company. There we go. This area is the hub, or we're calling it the hub. Most of you will know it. You're actually in at the moment. And welcome to Solihull, anybody who thinks they're in Birmingham. If you're doing a development, as I'm sure Rob will confirm, the nice thing to have is some kind of hook, a USP. Something that your development's got, which other people haven't, which will bring in the investors and occupiers. We happen to have an airport, Jaguar Land Rover's best factory, the NEC, a business park, a motorway junction, a mainline station, and another HS2 station going to open in 7 years' time. We've got enough hooks to do anything here, which is identified by Solihull Council many years ago when they thought of the hub concept as a real grower, an area to grow growth, residential employment, etc. The arrival of the HS2, though, is the thing that's really triggered the opportunity here. Not only has it released a lot of money for infrastructure improvements beyond HS2, which has been fantastic, but also it's allowed Solihull to release the Arden Cross site there, which is 140 hectares of land in the Greenbelt, which is coming out of the Greenbelt, hopefully, when the plan is adopted next year, which we could have at least 70 hectares of prime development land. And for anybody who knows the market, they know this is real prime development land. In addition, the National Exhibition Centre have got some plans with Birmingham City Council to also release, I don't know exactly, but probably 50, 60 hectares of also development land just across the motorway for us. So what was the UGC doing? UGC is basically identified to remove the constraints to growth before they come constraints. We're going to deliver public transport upgrades and upgrades the utilities in advance so that the growth is never constrained by the need to do that kind of thing. We're also coordinating all the landowners and the stakeholders, government bodies, etc. Interesting enough, the way we've drawn that is unfortunately quite telling. Those organisations are each fantastic and important, but they operate very much in silos. You cannot move across this area very easily. I don't think it's a choice thing, and actually they cooperate quite well, but physically they're silos. So we're trying to break that down mentally and physically through public transport and just working with those stakeholders who are all fully supportive of our aims. We're also working with Solihull Council to support their local plan, to make sure the local plan is as supportive to growth as possible while maintaining all the core principles we've got of maintaining the rural environment, maintaining environmental credentials, and providing access to jobs for those that need them most. Our key role, one of our key roles, is actually to justify a huge amount of public sector investment. Hundreds of millions of pounds are going to be spent of public money to deliver all this, and we need to say what it's worth. We're competing with all the other counties, all the other authorities, all the other regions to do that, and we need to say why here is the best place to spend your money. So UGC itself, just to explain, is a wholly owned company of Solihull Council. They identified the need for the growth agenda here, and they've also set our aims and agenda. But what does that agenda look like in reality? Well, we've mentioned public transport. We're actually investing in 2 mainline stations. The HS2 station, which you can see on the right there, I should just clarify, these are images that we knocked up. This is the kind of budget we've got, Rob, for images, nowhere near your kind of budget, clearly. That HS2 station, we're working with HS2 to basically turn that into the station it should be, not the station it will be, if we didn't intervene. So that's going to be a large, mixed-use development all around the station, taking real advantage of this greenbelt release and also the infrastructure improvements. A HS2 model has got very much a large amount of surface car parking, and Solihull Council negotiated an agreement where we can move away from that to more of this kind of urban extension. The station down there, the other station on the left, is the current Birmingham International Station, which many of you have been through and probably know how grim it is. Solihull Council, ourselves, we're going to completely rebuild that station with Network Rail and all our partners to make it fit for purpose and also sufficient capacity. The APM is a little train in the sky that HS2 are obliged to build to connect up HS2 Station International and the airport, which is just off the picture there. We're working with HS2 to make sure that APM becomes a really important piece of local infrastructure and can serve the development as well as the HS2 passengers. This is possibly more your area, Paula, but the tram and the Sprint eventually will be really important parts of public transport across this. This is the thing we talked about earlier, is that we want to introduce the public transport in advance, or at least have it ready in advance before the development, rather than this being a sea of office buildings with no public transport and then try to justify it afterwards, which is the way, unfortunately, these things tend to work. So we're working with Combined Authority, Transport West Midlands, to look at delivering bridges over the M42 and the West Coast Main Line to allow tram and Sprint to fully serve this scheme. We're also working with Sprint, which I'm glad to say has been progressed along the A45 to the airport to meet the Commonwealth Games. So we'll be open by 2022, early 2022. And that is, we're actually going to build a new station, or stop, you say, international station. So we get complete, proper multimodal integration. And then at the appropriate moment, we'll be working with them to make sure they travel across the motorway to serve the HS2 station as well. And unfortunately, we have to look at roads, mainly because the roads around there are log jammed through no fault of our own. But we are looking at targeted interventions, particularly around junction 4 of the M6 to the north there. We're working with HS2 around the other motorway junction, which is junction 6 of the M42, to make sure that we can still get vehicles in and out. We are very much pushing for modal shift. We're looking at the future here, but we're not being ignorant. People aren't going to get out their cars just because we tell them to. We need to give them enough provision, public transport, to allow them to do that. And in the meantime, we've got to keep the roads working. The other constraint we're really tackling is utilities, maybe the hidden constraint. I can't call him. And what we're doing now is we're working with some of our key partners, particularly JLR and HS2 and the airport, to look at doing some major upgrades of electricity. But also part of that, we're actually looking at how we manage and how do we do sustainable and innovative delivery of electricity. So we've asked to say, what does world-class development look like? It might look like that. It might look completely different to that. But what it's going to be is a really successful, very well integrated, mixed-use scheme in the right area at the right time. We think Solihull is the perfect area for growth, and we're just making sure that we use the limited amount of public funds we've got to remove as many constraints so that when the private developers come along, they can basically plug in, create jobs, create houses straight away. Fine, thank you very much. I shall now introduce Martin Yardley from Coventry.
Okay. So, I promise I'm not going to talk about batteries because even I'm bored with that at the moment. So, okay, so with the principle of we don't stick to any of the rules, I will try to stick to the time one, but all the others are shot, I'm afraid. So, Coventry City Centre, really compact city, but everybody has an impression of it. And what we've been trying to do over the last 10 years is to change the impression of Coventry City Centre. And we use a series of different methods for doing that, and hopefully we'll just show you a couple that we're working on at the moment. So let's just flick through that one. So that's a scheme. That's a scheme that's on site at the moment, nearly finished, and that is to accommodate 1,000 students. And the parts of the two schemes I want to tell you about is one is the student growth that's happening in the city centre, and lots of people know things about Coventry, but did you know we have 54,000 students? And of those 54,000 students, 24,000 go to Warwick University and the rest go to Coventry. It's also interesting that both universities are now in the top 13 in terms of university performance. So actually, we're finding this huge amount of drive going forward. And at the moment, we have something like 7,200 student apartments on site. And that's making huge differences in terms of how the city centre is appearing. And that's the kind of bit I want to talk to you about. It's resulting in restaurants, and that's something that's our new leisure pool. It seemed like a really good idea when we started it. Now I look at it again, but that's £36 million leisure pool where it's got 5 slides, a wave machine, and I think we're looking for volunteers to test the slides out in about 6 months' time. So if anybody fancies that, it would be quite interesting. There's also a spa if you're too scared to go down the slides. But in terms of where we are, this is another scheme that's now complete. That's something like 750 in student apartments. Now, the thing I would say to you in terms of justifying student apartments and how challenging that is with a city that is a manufacturing city like Coventry is, it was a challenge to actually persuade members that it was the right thing to do. And the way we ended up doing that was, first of all, to actually say for every 1,000 students, it's about £5 million spend within the city centre. That's great news. And for every 600 students, because it was easy to add up, that was around about 100 houses that could be released, or 10 acres of land that didn't have to be built on in the Greenbelt. Roughly that type of number. So we tried to make it into a format that members would understand. So it's not all about just building student accommodation for the universities, but actually there was a benefit. And if you look at a property rented for student accommodation, for six, it's around about £1,800 a month a landlord will expect to make. And if it goes back into family use, it's about £750 a month. So we've had to actually take the use away, so these houses can be returned back into the use we were looking for. And these are just examples of different schemes on site at the moment that we have either on the way, finished, or just carrying on progressing. So there's about 3,000 that's been completed, and as I said, there's another 7,200 to go. And that's probably the one that's nearing completion at the moment. So it's made a huge difference in terms of how the city appears. It's given a load of... If you go to Coventry and you haven't been to Coventry for quite a while, we've now got a huge amount of height. So I think our tallest block is 24 stories, and it was something that you just wouldn't have seen before. And it's made a big impression in terms of entrance points and gateway points into the city. And this is kind of what I wanted to focus on in terms of the bit I was asked to actually do, which is around Friargate and how we've done that. So that's what would have greeted you not that long ago if you'd have come to Coventry, a big grade separated junction. You had to go under a subway, over a park, under another subway and through. And by using £17 million, we turned that to that. And what I would say to you is if you ever get asked to get up at Sunday morning at 7 o'clock so you can actually start seeing the diggers bash one of those things, it's one of the most tedious exercises of your entire life, so I'd really just stay in bed if I was you. But in terms of 18 months, we turned from that to that. And that was all about spending £17 million on a first impression coming to a city. So rather than going under horrific subways, that's what happened. And that's kind of what Friargate's about. And Friargate is that scheme. The bridge I just showed you is right at the top of that scheme. It's a 3 million square feet mixed use next to the railway station. Railway station is within 57 minutes of London. So really trying to connect the connectivity down to London, but also making it in a really logical location. So you come out and you go straight to the station. So in terms of, as I said, £17 million for the bridge, £42 million that we are currently spending on schemes going into that, but we are spending a further £98 million on the railway station to make sure that railway station is fit for purpose. And again, that's something that we think is absolutely crucial in terms of connecting all of these up. So I'll just go through. So it's around about that in total, and it sits within the city like that. So it sits within the city in a way that actually breaks the collar. So taking the junction out broke the collar, and actually you can see how the city is growing out of that. And as I said, we think it's around about £1 billion scheme as that goes forward, but we'll, as the last speaker said, we'll see what happens when it gets built in terms of where we are. The railway station, it's going to look like that. I didn't pick the colour, thank God, but somebody else did. And in terms of where we are, in terms of the scales, that's the type of areas we're looking at in terms of multi-storey car park connectivity, additional bridges over the West Coast Main Line. I would suggest to you that anything is really easy to build except for a bridge over the West Coast Main Line. That probably is one of the most challenging things we're looking at the moment, but we let the contract. And then in terms of how Friargate sits, that's roughly how the master plan, so it's all consented in terms of a master plan consent and a flexible master plan consent. So if you want to change the uses around, you can, just in terms of making sure we have something that's attractive to clients. And as I said, that's kind of how it sits in terms of the amount and the scale and the mixed use in terms of how the schemes comes forward. So is there anything built? That's our office now. So our office was completed about a year ago next week. I think that's what it is. And we relocated 9 buildings that the City Council used to be located in, and we actually took, it's 11 stories of office block. We thought that was a great idea, and then suddenly somebody offered us money for 2 of the floors, so we then went to 9 stories of an 11-storey office block and actually took that. And the way it's working out in terms of changing working practices and everything else at the City Council, we can probably lose another floor in terms of making sure that we have somebody else coming in. So it started, as I said, the contract for the railway station was let a couple of weeks ago, and hopefully when you turn up at the railway station at Coventry, you'll see something a bit more like that than what you would have seen before. So I will flick through, so you don't need to see all of those. And then, sorry, Paula, I flicked through and I've got you some time, okay.
Thank you. Excellent, thanks. Excuse the staggering up here. I seem to be a little bit disabled at the moment. Lovely to see you all. Thank you. Good afternoon. I am here representing Midland Metro Alliance and I'm the head of procurement. So who are we and what do we do? Midland Metro Alliance are charged with delivering the integrated tram system, which is going to be working across Birmingham and the Black Country, and I'll touch on those shortly, touch on those individual schemes shortly. This is a big responsibility. Essentially what we're doing here is we are joining the dots. We already have several modes of transport. We have the train, we have cyclists, we have walkers, we have cars. We need to link all the transport systems that are operational across our region to make sure that we have a fluid, efficient, multimodal system for people to travel from one end to another smoothly, seamlessly, and without effort. And this is effectively future-proofing what we're doing. It's providing a system that's fit for the future. We're future-proofing. So who is the Midland Metro Alliance? In a nutshell, it's an alliance of partners who are each experts in their own field, whether that be design, construction, civil engineering, trains, planning, etc. And the idea is all these people get together and they each add their experience and their knowledge in order to provide the perfect end package, which will deliver that system into the Midlands. So in total, we are delivering 5 tram extensions and 1 replacement asset. That replacement was through Wolverhampton, the Bilston Road. That was delivered on time and on budget, thankfully, praise the Lord. So that was successful, and now we forge ahead with the remainder of these schemes, which I'll touch on shortly. Okay, so as I touched on earlier, we're combining a number of different expertises within the alliance model. It's a complex model. It requires collaboration across a whole range of companies, ethos, cultures, but we hope to come out of this with something which is superior. It's a superior offering that's fit for the people of the West Midlands, and it's what they deserve. We also need to bring these people together, not just for reasons of expertise, but because we have several key responsibilities, two of them being sustainability and environmental. The sustainability element, of course, means it continues to work. It's not just about trees, as we all know. It's about thinking about the future, what's going to be required in 25, 30, 50 years' time. Is it still going to be working then? And Laura Shove touched on something earlier when she said we were building in pipelines ready for installing future communication systems, not having to dig up the road again. And that's just one example of what we're trying to achieve here. We're trying to think very, very carefully about what this system needs to look like for our children, for our grandchildren and future generations. So line 1, many of you will be aware of, went into New Street in Birmingham. That was finished, I think it was 2014. I wasn't around then, but it was a success. It was a success, and it increased passenger usage by, I think, 2 million, 33%, which is quite a number, really. It shows that, to paraphrase, I think it was God in the Bible, he says, if you build it, they will come. It's not quite Noah's Ark. I think he said it to Noah to get them to come to his ark. We're not quite Noah's Ark style yet, but the point is, if you put a transport system in front of people which is quiet, efficient, environmentally friendly, on their doorstep, they will come and use it. And it's worked in Amsterdam, it's worked in across Europe. There was a recent group gathering of people, I think it was called the Urban Growth Multimodal Group, and they specialise in trams, and they basically said, look, we put trams in our our cities, and people use them not because they're very environmentally friendly tree huggers, but simply because it's the best system that there is. It's there, people will get on it. Okay, so I'm going to go have a quick jump through the next slide. Okay, so a fluid continuation of line 1 across the west side of the city. So we're taking the tram from New Street, where it finished. We're going to take it up to Victoria Square, across the road onto Centenary Square. That's phase 1 of the West Side extension. And that will then take it up Broad Street out towards Edgbaston, where there is due to be a serious amount of economic growth up that area. So again, we're taking people from the east side to the centre, out to the west side of the city, again, seamlessly. The line will just continue through those routes. Wolverhampton City Centre extension, we've just finished the planning phase there, which is dealing with utilities, moving certain things that we need to move, ready for the installation. We're getting out of the way temporarily to allow the developers to work on the train station. When that's in place, we will go back again, we will install the line, and it will run straight into the new train station. So for that, we're aiming at 2020. So the Wolverhampton extension growth benefits, seamless transport link, I've already touched on. We've got jobs and skills here. One of the key drivers of what we're doing here is we made a promise to take people from the local job pool, or jobless pool as it may have been, and train them and give them jobs and set them up ready for when HS2 comes thundering through, creating that sort of trainee pool of people. We have been doing that. We've had apprenticeship schemes. We've been working with sector-based work academies with the colleges and universities across the city. We've had some success with it. We're not huge. We're quite a little baby compared to the might of HS2, but we're quite proud that we have given people a number of skills that can be taken with them for many years to come. And of course, Wolverhampton is a hub of growing economic development. They need a transport system that's fit for their purposes in the future. So Wednesbury to Brierley Hill, this is an interesting one. So in the early 60s, there was a train line which ran from Wednesbury down to Dudley Port. It was a heavy line and it was taken out of use. And we're now going to revitalise that, and we're going to turn that into a light rail tram route, which is actually very, very exciting. A lot of challenges across that route. It was an old mining area, lots of bridges, lots of structures. Very excited about it. That will then stop for a while, and then we will develop phase 2, which goes on from Dudley Port up to Brierley Hill to fit in with the HS2 developments which are taking place there. Again, growth benefits. This is an area which is a little bit fragmented in terms of being served by transport systems. There needs to be that link up. You know, there's big gaps there in terms of transport, and there's traditionally a low car usage when compared with the rest of the area. So they need the transport system there to get people to jobs, to get them to the houses, to get them to the schools, to link up that system. Birmingham East Side, so this is where we take it from the Birmingham city centre and we take it down through Digbeth to Curzon Street. This will be a good one. This will revitalise the area as well. Very exciting, revitalising, taking people down through that economic area, which is currently being regenerated. And then, of course, it links up, as I say, to HS2, and eventually we will take it from there out to East Birmingham, to Solihull, and that area linking into the main HS2 infrastructure, which is taking place there. So that will be 17 kilometres, that big one. That's the biggie. We're going across multiple councils, multiple landowner areas. And it is worth reminding people that the planning of these schemes has been going on for more than a decade. Public consultations, discussions through government, funding opportunities. It's been a long road. I've really only come in on this on the end part of it. I've only been here for 2 years. Okay, so again, regenerating East Birmingham and North Solihull, access to jobs in an area of economic booming growth, as we heard earlier. Telling me how long I've got to go here. I need to speed up. Okay, supporting growth, education. We're bringing people into the industry. We're training them. We're showing them that, yes, you can get a job in construction and it's not all boring. It is contributing to the future of our economy. It's not just sticking spades in the ground, which strangely a lot of kids at school now think. We're collaborating with local schools. We're giving work experience. We're giving apprenticeships, skills training, reducing unemployment, upskilling. Sustainable future, not just for the transport sector, but for the people of the region, and importantly, the young people of the region who are the future. And this is a greener alternative to the car. You can take 200 people in your average tram length. When you think about how much space a car can take up and the maximum you can get in a 5, that's quite an improvement. It's greener, it's quieter, and we are aiming to run our network on batteries, so we're not going to have many unsightly wires cascading from one building to another. We're going to be using modern technology. So, thank you very much for your time. I think I've come in just on time there, and I'll hand you back over to Dr. Colin.
Well, thank you very much to all the presenters. I hope that has enthused you. I hope that's got your energy levels up for the afternoon session. And I think just 3 or 4 final points that take away. Do not be in any doubt that what you have just seen are truly world-class projects in the making. And I think we should all be proud of that, and we'll all be even more proud when they're all completed and serving us well. The Paradise one I love because as I work in Baskerville House the last 2 years, I can truly say to everybody that I walk through Paradise every day. And it's a very, very fantastic building site as well, Rob. Please go out there and spread the message. You've had 4 fantastic presentations. For the last 2 years of my life, I've been promoting these projects across the country, but also across the world to international investors. And every one of them has attracted very high level of interest. And in fact, now, of course, with certain projects like Paradise, there is already international investors already invested in that for the long term. So I think finally we can say that we are developing and constructing a real world-class asset here in the West Midlands. Enjoy. Thank you very much.